Admiral Krex'tor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable doom, admiring his own reflection in the polished metal walls. At 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin the color of burnt coffee, he cut an impressive figure in his ceremonial battle armor. The armor was mostly for show these days, since conquering worlds had become embarrassingly easy. 847 worlds, he muttered to himself, polishing one of his many military decorations. 847 civilizations that thought they could resist the might of the Vorthak Empire. The Vorthak were legendary throughout the galaxy for 2 things: their complete inability to understand humor and their obsession with military protocol. They approached warfare like accountants approach tax season, with methodical precision and soul-crushing efficiency. Lieutenant Blixmar approached with the latest intelligence report, his multiple eyes scanning the data pad nervously. "Admiral, the reconnaissance data on planet Earth is complete." Krex'tor barely glanced up. "Let me guess. Another primitive backwater begging for liberation from their own incompetence?" "Exactly, sir. The inhabitants are bipedal mammals who apparently spend most of their time staring at small rectangular devices and arguing about the nutritional value of various plants. Their most advanced weapons appear to be metallic projectile launchers and something called nuclear bombs, which they've somehow managed not to use on themselves for almost a century." "Pathetic," Krex'tor snorted through his breathing slits. "Their military capabilities? Laughable, sir. They organize their conflicts around arbitrary lines drawn on maps and seem incapable of unified action. Most of their energy is devoted to something called social media, where they post pictures of their food." Krex'tor waved a dismissive hand. "This sounds like perfect training exercise material. Where's my nephew?" Commander Glorf stumbled onto the bridge, somehow managing to look disheveled despite wearing a uniform that was supposed to be wrinkle-proof. At 6 feet tall, he was considered a runt by Vorthak standards, and his tendency to trip over his own feet didn't help his military career. "You wanted to see me, Uncle? I mean, Admiral? Nephew, congratulations. You're about to lead your first planetary conquest." Glorf's 4 eyes widened in what could charitably be called excitement, but looked more like terror. "Really? Which planet?" "Earth. Population 7 billion weak mammals. No significant defenses. Should be over by lunch." Krex'tor handed him a datapad. "Try not to embarrass the family name more than usual." 3 days later, Glorf's invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. The plan was simple: appear dramatically over major population centers, demand surrender, accept surrender, file paperwork. Standard Tuesday, really. Unfortunately, the Vorthak had never encountered a species that labeled their navigation satellites in languages that changed meaning depending on context, regional dialect, and then local slang. The fleet's computer, programmed by beings who thought efficiency meant using only prime numbers, interpreted Alabama as Alabama, the most strategically important military installation on the planet Earth. "Sir," reported Navigation Officer Twiplex, "we've arrived at the primary target coordinates." Glorf looked out at the green rolling hills dotted with small structures and what appeared to be grazing animals. "Are you sure this is their capital?" "Absolutely, sir. The computer says this is their most important strategic location." "It looks like farmland." "Perhaps it's camouflaged, sir?" Glorf shrugged. Orders were orders, and questioning the computer was above his pay grade. "Begin the invasion. Deploy landing craft to grid coordinates." He squinted at his display. "Wherever that smoke is coming from." The Cooter family barbecue reunion was going exactly as planned, which meant somebody was already arguing about whose potato salad was better. Uncle Bobby had fallen asleep in his lawn chair with a beer balanced on his stomach, and Cooter himself was standing over 3 different smokers like a conductor directing an orchestra of meat. 67-year-old Cooter MacReady had been perfecting his barbecue technique since before most people were born. He wore his lucky grilling apron, the one with 17 different sauce stains that told the story of every family gathering for the past decade. His philosophy was simple: good food, good family, and good times in that order. "Mabel, you checked them ribs yet?" he called to his daughter, who was currently showing her cousin Earl's kids how to properly throw a horseshoe. MacReady Johnson had served 2 tours in Afghanistan before coming home to raise 3 kids and run the local hardware store. She could field strip an M4 carbine in 30 seconds and make cornbread that would bring grown men to tears. Right now, she was trying to explain to 8-year-old Tommy why throwing horseshoes at people wasn't technically horseshoes. "They're good for another hour, Dad," she called back. "Jake, quit messing with that radio and help your great-uncle Vernon with the corn." 22-year-old Jake looked up from the old CB radio he'd been tinkering with, pushing his Auburn University engineering cap back on his head. "I almost got this thing picking up satellite feeds. I think I can boost the signal if I just..." That's when the sky exploded. Well, not exploded exactly. More like suddenly filled with massive silver ships that definitely hadn't been there a minute ago. The ships were sleek and angular, designed by beings who clearly believed that aesthetics should inspire fear and submission. "Well, I'll be damned," Cooter said, not even looking up from his brisket. "Mabel, you invite anybody with flying machines to the barbecue?" The largest ship settled onto Cooter's back 40 with surprising gentleness, its landing thrusters only slightly singeing the grass. Smaller vessels formed a perimeter around the property, their weapon systems swiveling menacingly. A ramp extended from the main ship with a dramatic hiss of hydraulics. Commander Glorf appeared at the top, resplendent in his polished battle armor, flanked by 12 heavily armed Vorthak soldiers. He had practiced this moment in the mirror for months. Primitive humans. Glorf declared in his most intimidating voice, which his theater teacher had described as needs work. "I am Commander Glorf of the Galactic Dominion. You will surrender immediately or face total annihilation." Cooter looked up from his smoker, wiped his hands on his apron, and walked over with the casual confidence of a man who had never met a problem that couldn't be solved with either barbecue or bourbon. "Well, hey there," he said, extending a sauce-stained hand. "Welcome to the MacReady family reunion. Why, all hungry? We got plenty of food." Glorf stared at the outstretched hand like it might explode. His soldiers raised their plasma rifles uncertainly. This wasn't covered in the manual. "Did you not hear my declaration of conquest?" Glorf asked, his voice cracking slightly. "Oh, we heard, yeah," Mabel said, walking over while still holding a horseshoe. "But you look like you ain't ate in a while. When's the last time we all had a proper meal?" The universal translator in Glorf's helmet chose that moment to short-circuit, probably overwhelmed by trying to process the phrase "why all" into Vorthak military protocol. Sparks flew from his communications array. "Oh," Jake said, jogging over. "Looks like your equipment's having some issues. I can take a look at that if you want. I'm pretty good with electronics." Glorf found himself nodding before he remembered he was supposed to be terrifying. The smell coming from those smoking devices was doing something strange to his brain. His species had evolved on a planet where food was strictly utilitarian protein paste. The concept of making food smell good was completely foreign. Is that food supposed to smell like that?" he asked weakly. "Son," Cooter said with the patience of a man explaining the obvious, "that's 14 hours of love and oak smoke talking. You sure you ain't hungry?" Behind Glorf, his soldiers were having their own problems. Cousin Earl had wandered over with a plate of pulled pork sandwiches and was offering them around like party favors. The Vorthak military handbook specifically warned against accepting gifts from conquered populations, but it hadn't mentioned anything about gifts that smelled like paradise. "Sir," whispered Sergeant Claxton, "what's our protocol for this situation?" Glorf realized he had no idea. The invasion manual covered resistance, surrender, negotiation, and even the occasional suicidal charge. It did not cover hospitality. 20 minutes later, Commander Glorf found himself sitting at a picnic table with a plate of food that defied every law of Vorthak cuisine. His soldiers stood at attention nearby, each holding paper plates and looking deeply confused. "Now here's my secret dry rub," Cooter was explaining, pointing to the ribs with obvious pride. 17 different spices, including some paprika I get special from a guy who knows a guy. The trick is getting the balance right between sweet heat and that little bit of tang. Glorf nodded seriously, as if receiving critical intelligence about enemy fortifications. The barbecue sauce was having unprecedented effects on his nervous system. Every bite made him feel happy? Was that the right word? Vorthak didn't really have a concept for happiness that didn't involve successful military campaigns. And this, Uncle Vernon added, sliding a mason jar across the table, is Cooter's special moonshine. Made it myself in the back holler. Smooth as silk and stronger than a mule's kick. Sergeant Krex'tor leaned over to his commander. Sir, regulations strictly forbid consuming unknown substances during military operations. It's called reconnaissance, Glorf replied, taking another sip. The moonshine made his mandibles tingle in a pleasant way. We're gathering intelligence about local customs. Meanwhile, Mabel had cornered 3 Vorthak soldiers near the horseshoe pit and was giving them an impromptu lesson on proper weapon maintenance. See, the problem with you boys' rifles is all this fancy energy stuff, she explained, field stripping one of their plasma weapons with practiced ease. Too many moving parts. Give me a good old AK-47 any day. Simple, reliable, and when it jams, you can fix it with spit and determination. The aliens watched in fascination as she cleaned their weapons more thoroughly than they'd been cleaned since manufacture. Military doctrine said they should stop her, but the weapons were performing 30% better after her ministrations. Over by the cars, Jake had managed to get under the hood of an alien scout ship and was making improvements that violated several laws of physics. Your problem here is efficiency, he explained to 2 bewildered Vorthak engineers. Why all got all this advanced technology? But you're not using duct tape anywhere. Duct tape fixes everything. But our systems are designed to operate within precise tolerances, protested engineer Bleck's car. Trust me, Jake said, wrapping duct tape around a plasma conduit. Sometimes you gotta work with what you got. My granddad always said you can fix anything with duct tape, WD-40 and prayer. If it's supposed to move and it don't, use WD-40. If it ain't supposed to move and it does, use duct tape. The scout ship's engine efficiency immediately improved by 40%. Back on the inevitable doom, Admiral Krex'tor was receiving status reports that made less sense with each transmission. Sir, Communications Officer Drexlex reported nervously. Commander Glorf's latest message says, and I quote, Uncle Krex, you gotta try this stuff they call coleslaw. It's like salad, but good. What's coleslaw? Krex'tor demanded. Unknown, sir. Also, half his invasion force appears to be participating in something called a horseshoe tournament. Are they taking hostages? Unclear, sir. The last transmission mentioned something about teams being picked fairly and everyone getting a chance to play. Krex'tor rubbed his primary forehead with 2 hands while the other 2 drummed impatiently on his command chair. Get me a direct line to Glorf. Now. The view screen flickered to life, showing Commander Glorf sitting at a picnic table with what appeared to be primitive humans. His usually pristine uniform was stained with something red and brown, and he was holding a cylindrical object that was definitely not standard military equipment. Uncle Krex. Perfect timing. You've got to get down here and try this beer. It's like nutrition paste, but it makes you feel funny and everything seems more interesting. Glorf, what is your tactical status? Tactical? Oh, right. Well, we've made contact with the locals. They're surprisingly friendly for a primitive species. Did you know they have over 40 different ways to prepare pig meat? 40. And this thing called cornbread that's basically edible happiness. Krex'tor's left eye began to twitch, which in Vorthak physiology indicated either extreme stress or the early stages of combat rage. Glorf, you're supposed to be conquering the planet, not attending a social gathering. About that, Glorf said, taking another sip of beer and immediately forgetting what he was going to say. Oh, right, conquest. Yeah, these humans are really something else. You should meet Cooter. He's like a military strategist, but for food. And his daughter Mabel knows more about weapons than our entire armory division. The transmission cut out. Admiral Krex'tor decided personal intervention was required. He loaded his personal dreadnought with his most elite troops and prepared to salvage what remained of his nephew's military career. The trip to Earth's surface took exactly 14 minutes, during which Krex'tor rehearsed the speech he was going to give about military discipline, family honor, and the importance of following protocol. He was also going to have a stern talk with whoever designed their navigation systems. His ship descended through the atmosphere like a falling meteor, its arrival announced by sonic booms that rattled windows for 3 counties. The massive vessel settled onto the MacReady property with enough gravitational displacement to crack the foundation of the old barn. Krex'tor emerged from his ship in full ceremonial armor, flanked by 50 of his most decorated warriors. He surveyed the scene before him with growing disbelief. His invasion force was scattered across the property. Some were playing horseshoes with alarming enthusiasm. Others were gathered around smoking devices, watching the food preparation process with the intensity of scholars studying ancient texts. Commander Glorf was nowhere to be seen. "What," Krex'tor said slowly, "in the name of the 7 burning moons is happening here?" "Well, hey there, Admiral," came a voice from behind him. Krex'tor spun around to find an elderly human male approaching with 2 plates of food and the sort of confident smile that suggested he was completely unimpressed by interdimensional military might. "I'm Cooter MacReady, and this here's my property. Your boy Glorf mentioned you might be stopping by. Hope you're hungry, 'cause we got plenty of food." Krex'tor looked around for Glorf and finally spotted him near a large tree, participating in what appeared to be some sort of primitive projectile game with several humans and 3 of his own soldiers. "Glorf," Krex'tor bellowed, "report." Glorf looked up, swayed slightly, and attempted something resembling military posture. "Uncle Admiral." "Sir, I've been conducting deep reconnaissance into local customs and cultural practices." "You're drunk." "It's medicinal," Glorf protested. "The humans call it testing the moonshine for quality control purposes. It's very thorough." Krex'tor decided to demonstrate proper military protocol by making an example of the humans' inadequate defenses. He pointed at a small wooden structure near the tree line. "Tactical Officer Rex Lawn. Destroy that enemy fortification." The plasma cannon charged with a satisfying whine and fired a bolt of superheated energy that vaporized the small building instantly. Unfortunately, the small building had been Cooter's prize-winning outhouse, built by his grandfather and featured in Southern Living magazine's authentic rural architecture issue 3 years running. The barbecue reunion fell silent. "Now see here," Cooter said, his voice taking on a tone that made smart people start looking for cover. "That was my granddaddy's outhouse, built in 1953, with lumber from trees that grew on this very property." Mabel stepped up beside her father, and for the first time since landing, the aliens got a good look at someone who actually knew how to handle military hardware. She'd been keeping her Marine training low-key, but the destruction of family property changed things. "Mabel," Cooter said quietly, "I think these folks need to learn some manners." "Copy that, Dad." Mabel turned to the gathered family members. "Reunion's officially over, y'all. Time to show our guests some Southern hospitality." Within minutes, the MacReady family transformed from barbecue attendees into a well-organized militia that would have made the Continental Army proud. What followed was the first interplanetary conflict in human history to be fought with a combination of military-grade alien technology and improvised farm equipment powered by moonshine and righteous indignation. Mabel had always said that the difference between regular folks and Marines was that Marines knew how to improvise under pressure. She proved this by mounting Jake's newly duct-taped alien energy cannon onto the back of Uncle Vernon's John Deere tractor, creating the galaxy's first agricultural assault vehicle. "Jake, I need that shield generator working in the next 2 minutes," she called out while welding alien armor plating onto the tractor's cab. "Almost got it, Mama," Jake replied, his engineering degree finally proving useful for something besides student loan debt. "Just gotta bypass the quantum flux inhibitor with this jumper cable in there." The tractor's front bucket loader flickered to life with an energy shield that could stop plasma cannon fire. Jake had also managed to rig the corn planter to fire explosive alien grenades at a rate of 60 rounds per minute. Meanwhile, the alien forces had split into 2 camps. Admiral Krex'tor's loyalists maintained military discipline and continued following orders, while an increasingly large number of Vorthak soldiers had discovered that barbecue sauce and moonshine made everything better, including military hierarchy. Sergeant Krex'tor reported to Glorf, "I think I want to defect." "You can't defect," Glorf replied, loading alien plasma charges into Cousin Earl's potato cannon. "We're already the defecting side." "Then I want to defect from defecting and join the barbecue coalition." "That's just joining." "Whatever it's called, Cooter promised to name a sauce after me if we win." The battle reached its climax when Admiral Krex'tor, frustrated beyond all military protocol, decided to end things by bringing his dreadnought's main guns to bear on the property. The ship's primary plasma cannon could level a city block. Unfortunately for Krex'tor's tactical planning, Jake had spent the last hour modifying Cooter's combined harvester with alien shield technology, anti-gravity units, and what appeared to be the engine from a scout ship. The result was a flying farm implement that defied both physics and common sense. "Uncle Vernon," Jake called out as he climbed into the pilot's seat, "I'm going to need you to man the threshing cannon." Boy, I've been waiting my whole life for someone to say that sentence. The aerial battle between a galactic Dominion dreadnought and a heavily modified John Deere combined harvester lasted approximately 7 minutes and became the stuff of legend throughout 17 different star systems. It ended when Krex'tor's ship, damaged by what military historians would later describe as aggressive agricultural implements, crashed directly into Cooter's pig pen. Admiral Krex'tor pulled himself from the wreckage of his command center, covered in mud, pig slop, and what appeared to be some kind of alien barbecue sauce. His ceremonial armor had several dents shaped suspiciously like hoofprints. Cooter appeared beside the crashed ship, somehow having acquired a ladder and another plate of food. "You all right in there, Admiral?" "That was quite a landing." "Here, try this." He handed Krex'tor a sandwich. "It's my secret sauce. Recipe's been in the family for 3 generations. Krex'tor, operating on military autopilot in mild concussion, took a bite. What happened next would reshape galactic politics for the next millennium. The sandwich contained what humans call flavor, a concept so alien to Vorthak experience that Krex'tor's brain needed several seconds to process it. The combination of perfectly smoked meat, tangy sauce, and what Jake later explained was love and patience triggered a cascade of neurochemical reactions that essentially rewired the Admiral's entire worldview. "This is," Krex'tor paused, searching for words in a language that had 47 different terms for military defeat but no word for delicious. "This is good?" "Course it's good," Cooter said. "That's the point." Krex'tor sat down heavily on what used to be his command chair and took another bite. "We have conquered 847 worlds," he said slowly, "and not once has anyone offered us anything like this." "Well, that's cause why all been doing it wrong," Mabel said, sitting down beside him. "See, the secret to good barbecue is the same secret to most everything else. You got to care about what you're doing, and you got to care about who you're doing it for." "We have been conquering for the glory of the Empire," Krex'tor said uncertainly. "But were you happy doing it?" Jake asked. Krex'tor considered this question for what was probably the first time in his military career. "No," he admitted. "No, I was not happy." "Well, there's your problem right there," Cooter said. "Life's too short to spend it being miserable. Why all want to stick around for dessert? Mabel makes a peach cobbler that'll change your perspective on existence." 6 months later, the Galactic Dominion had been restructured as the Galactic Federation of Good Times and Barbecue. Conquest fleets were converted to food trucks. Military bases became community centers. The Vorthak's natural organizational skills, when applied to party planning instead of warfare, proved absolutely devastating to galactic boredom. Cooter found himself appointed as the first human galactic ambassador of Good Times, a position that mostly involved traveling to different planets and teaching aliens how to cook food that didn't taste like recycled cardboard. His official diplomatic credentials were printed on the back of his business cards, right under MacReady's BBQ. We put the K in quality. Mabel established the galaxy's first cross-species military training program, where alien soldiers learned that proper tactical planning should always include provisions for feeding your troops something that didn't make them question their life choices. Her motto was an army marches on its stomach, but it fights better with barbecue in it. Jake became the Federation's chief technical officer, a job that mostly involved explaining to advanced alien civilizations why duct tape was the most important technology in the universe. His doctoral thesis applied redneck engineering, how to fix anything with common household items and pure stubbornness, became required reading at technical academies across 17 systems. Admiral Krex'tor, now calling himself Admiral K and wearing an apron that read "Kiss the Cook," but asked permission first, discovered that organizing barbecue competitions required the same strategic planning skills as military campaigns, but with significantly better outcomes for everyone involved. The story concluded 6 months later when the Federation received reports of another invasion fleet approaching Earth. Cooter suited up in his diplomatic apron and prepared for another round of aggressive hospitality. The invasion turned out to be a convoy of food trucks from the Andromeda Galaxy, piloted by beings who had heard rumors of something called barbecue and wanted to participate in what they understood to be Earth's traditional greeting ceremony. "Well," Cooter said, watching alien food trucks set up in his backyard alongside ships from a dozen different worlds, "I reckon we're going to need more tables." And somewhere in the cosmic distance, other warlike species heard rumors of a small blue planet where invaders went to start food festivals instead of wars, and began making course corrections toward Earth with their own secret family recipes in hopes of getting invited to the next reunion. Because sometimes the most effective way to conquer the galaxy is with pulled pork, and the radical concept that maybe everyone could use a good meal and some friendly conversation. The universe had become a significantly tastier place,